Have you ever had a passion project and found that when you explained it to others, they didn't know what it was? That's what happened to me when I tried to join a choral speaking group here in Oakville, and no one knew what choral speaking was. This podcast is the story of how I tried to put together my own choral speaking group. I'm Kathy Bullock, and you're listening to In Search of Choral Speaking in Oakville. Hello everyone. I am delighted to tell you that today we have a special guest, a choral speaking expert who's going to talk to us about her experiences of choral speaking. She is a performer, the artistic director in a performing arts school called the Acting Centre, which is in Guelph, Ontario, and she's a voice coach. And full disclosure, she was my voice coach for a couple of years, working with me once a week. That's how I came to know that she knows about choral speaking. Welcome, Zoe Heath, to my show.
Thank you, Kathy. It's my pleasure. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Wow, what an intro.
You know, when I don't remember how it came up between us, but I said something about how I wanted to get back into choral speaking, and I'd been talking to people and I didn't know even if you knew what it was. Most people I'd been talking to said, "Oh, choral speaking, what's that?" But
Right.
you were like, "Oh yeah, you knew about it." So the
Yes.
first question I want to ask you is how? How did you come to know about it?
Well, I think when you study acting, you study theater. That is one of the things, certainly most of the traditional programs is choral speaking. Um, because we go back right to the Greeks and with choral speaking and all of the live productions and the plays that they would do were ensembles doing choral speaking, the coming together of the voices and the power behind that, and you train in that as a student, um, and it feels so powerful that when you start to do it, you just think like you want to do more, right? So
Mm.
that's really, I'm trying to think if I even was aware of that it was anything like choral speaking prior to university, and I'm not sure that I would have understood that. So I think it was the fabulous voice coaches at university.
I came across when I was trying to do some research about it recently. There's a curriculum guide for, I think it was grade 7 in Ontario, but you're saying that you hadn't come across it in school, it was at university.
No, yeah, in school it was always write a speech, do it by yourself, which
Mm.
was terrifying. And I right. That sleepless night before, do all my cue cards ready, I'm so scared, and everyone's staring at you in the gymnasium. But I do see that more schools, less so in Canada, but other countries seem to be doing this choral speaking with younger people, which is fabulous
And
because
you told me that you teach choral speaking. You run
we we
an
we
acting school.
yes, well, choral speaking is something that I try to incorporate weekly in our warm up, um, for many reasons. If you have uh, actors, and not everybody that's there is going to be in the performing arts. They're there because they love it, but they might follow something else,
Mm.
go into something else. But coming together and doing that as a group and blending the voices is a fantastic way of um, giving building confidence, giving confidence to your voice, knowing that you're supported by others around you with
Mhm.
that, and hearing your voice and hearing others thinking, okay, I have a voice here, okay, I can do that, wow, that was very moving, oh, I'm feeling something inside myself.
Mhm.
And and in doing that, in choral speaking, it gives us that confidence when we are solo. And of course, even listening to your stuff, Kathy, that you're doing, you're hearing that confidence, right? When
Mm.
voices are together and then
Mm.
someone branches off into their solo, it's like the other voices are lifting it and holding it, and then falls back in, and it falls back in. And so if we do that every week, if the actors get together and we come together as a group and we start doing that with our voices, it is a wonderful way to kick off a 2 hour class.
Mm.
Um,
And
and
how old are they mostly?
well, from 8 to 18.
Mm.
And I've done this with adult workshops as well,
Mm.
um, especially for adults who aren't necessarily in the arts, of course, right?
Mm.
You think if you're sitting at a desk all day, every day, or you have a high stress job, then you come in, you meet people from different backgrounds, different work, different families, different things going on in their life, different stresses, and suddenly you're working together as an ensemble. You're doing choral speaking. You might be doing a piece that is very moving or silly or whatever that might be. Um, how freeing that is,
Mm. So you said
outside of the
something,
performance side of it, because then there's how it moves the audience too, right?
right?
You start
So
there.
maybe I might ask you about that in a bit, but you said something that I sort of don't think I'd thought of. You started out by saying, we were asked to give speeches by ourselves and it's very nerve-wracking, but there's a power in learning to speak through the group. And can you sort of just talk a little bit more about that? That was something I hadn't thought of. Although as a kid, when I was doing it, I think I felt that without realizing that's what I was feeling. The the sense of, I'm going to use the word empowerment, but it's such a cliched word. But that sense
Yes.
of being a voice amongst many voices.
Yeah.
Can you just sort of talk a little bit more about that? You said something I hadn't really thought of.
Well, if you have groups of people, maybe you have a very confident person and maybe someone who in everyday life doesn't feel like they're seen, doesn't feel like they have anything to say, or that someone over here that is very popular and everyone listens to them, someone over here that doesn't feel seen, doesn't feel like they belong for whatever reason. You suddenly, there is none of that in choral speaking. There is no that voice over there is better, and there is no better, but that kind of social game. Um, Suddenly, that person who feels like they don't belong is a powerful voice in a group, and that can keep growing. As soon as that is introduced, that can keep growing within them and think that felt really, really good. And maybe the person who's the loudest, who's always talking, is now forced to be patient, to stop, because they have to blend with the others. They have to wait for the other cue. They have to do the dance through the voice. And perhaps maybe no one's even thinking that deeply on that level, but it could be happening. And it's happening, and it might dawn on them later, or they might not understand what the process is. Um, and I don't know, I'm just wildly entertained by that, and satisfied with that notion that there's no you don't have to be of a certain status or a certain this or a certain look or whatever to do choral speaking, because everybody has to support the piece.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I think it sounds so beautiful when you're in the audience, or even when I'm just sitting in the studio and the actors are doing it. I find myself very moved by a combination of voices.
Have you find that teaching choral speaking is hard, especially to kids who might not have heard of it, or even adults?
Yes, I think it can be hard because we are in this place where we want things very quickly on our phone or in a show or a TV show, and so asking performers to come back to something like choral speaking, slow it down, be patient, listen to others, that can be tricky. That can be tricky, especially with this desire for that fast food entertainment. But I do believe that we're seeing this coming back now. We're seeing people say, I want to make that connection. I want to talk about something that's happening in the world, or something that's lighthearted that's going to make me laugh. or maybe something that's going to move me and make me cry. And, when we bring our voices together, we can do this great performance and bring it to audiences. And so I really believe that it is hard. It can be tricky. It does require rehearsal and dedication and a little bit of discipline for sure. But once that comes together like pieces of the puzzle, it's a really fantastic way to perform, to bring people together in a community, to entertain an audience. And so hard, yes, but worth it, definitely, yes.
I wish I had time to ask you more about it. Thanks so much for taking time out of your schedule to talk to us about choral speaking and share these little snippets. Thank you so much,
Thank you,
Zoe.
Kathy. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks.
You've been listening to my podcast, In Search of Choral Speaking in Oakville. Today, we had the honour of talking to Zoe Heath, performer and artistic director of the Acting Centre in Guelph. She's been performing and teaching choral speaking for many years. Wasn't it a treat to hear from her? Let me know in the comments if you've had any experiences with choral speaking. Next episode, we'll talk to an acoustics engineer to learn more about sound and spaces. Until then, stay safe, stay well. I'm Kathy Bullock, and I've been your host for this podcast.